Hi class, Norm Stevens here. Hope everyone's doing well. Wanted to go over a Camtasia video with you regarding Chapter 6, Efficiency and Fairness in Markets. One way to view these videos could be to try the questions on your own, then come to the video and check the answers. But if you'd rather just hear my voice and have me go through the answers first, that's okay too. Consider the following markets. At McDonald's, no reservations are accepted. At Puck's at St. Louis Art Museum, reservations are accepted. At the Bissell Mansion Restaurant, reservations are essential. Use this information to work problems 1 to 3. First question asks, describe the method of allocating tables in all of these 3 restaurants. All of these restaurants use a first-come, first-serve system. McDonald's uses this system directly. Bissell Mansion uses a first-come, first-serve because the first person to call to make a reservation at a particular time is allocated the table at that time. Puck's uses a combination of the immediate first-come, first-serve system and the reservation-based first-come, first-serve system. Question 2, why do you think restaurants have different reservation policies, and why might each restaurant be using an effective allocation method? Well, the speed with which tables turn over at the different restaurants probably is quite different, and the customers probably have different values of time. Bissell Mansion has a low turnover rate. Only 1 or 2 groups of customers can use a table each night, and its customers have a high value of time. If Bissell Mansion refused to take reservations, its customers would need to wait an inefficiently long time and would go to elsewhere, so that Bissell Mansion profits would be lower. At McDonald's, and here let me break this up, at McDonald's, the tables have a high turnover rate. Indeed, many customers do not use the tables at all, buying their food to go, sometimes even eating it as they run out the door, and the customers have a lower value of time. Allowing reservations would be costly for McDonald's and would spare its customer only a slight wait at most, so that allowing reservations would decrease McDonald's profits. At Puck's, the turnover rate of tables is between that at Bissell Mansion and McDonald's, so it uses a combination of phone reservation first come, first serve, and appear in person first come, first serve. Each restaurant is using a different allocation method because of the relative costs. Each uses the method that has the lowest cost for the restaurant. Question 3, why don't all restaurants use the market price to allocate their tables? Well, market allocation requires that customers pay for a table, and the price would fluctuate from 1 hour to the next depending on the number of customers who arrive. Customers would be highly uncertain about the price they would need to pay, and such uncertainty decreases the demand for meals from the restaurant. The decreased demand lowers the restaurant's profit. Question 4 involves the table, so I copied over the table. Whoops. My apologies. There you go. And use this table to work the questions 4 to 7. Question 4. Calculate the equilibrium price of a sandwich, the consumer surplus, and the producer surplus. What is the efficient quantity of sandwiches? And you can simply look at where the numbers line up there and see the equilibrium price and quantity. The equilibrium quantity is 200 sandwiches, and the equilibrium price is $400 a sandwich. Figure 6.1 can be used to calculate the consumer surplus. The consumer surplus equals the area of the light gray triangle above the price and below the demand curve. So you can see that there. The area of the triangle is 1/2 the base times the height, so the consumer surplus is 1/2 times 200 sandwiches times $4 a sandwich, which is $400. You can also use the figure to calculate the producer surplus. The producer surplus equals the area of the dark gray triangle below the price and above the supply curve. Right in here, this area is 1/2 times 200 sandwiches times $4 a sandwich, which is $400. The efficient quantity is 200 sandwiches. Question 5. If the quantity demanded decreases by 100 sandwiches an hour at each price, what is the equilibrium price and what is the change in total surplus? So I reprinted the original table here, so that's the original table, and then the new table with the quantity demanded decreased by 100 at each price. So here's the quantity demanded column, and I simply subtracted 100 from each of the amounts that were originally demanded. And whenever you get a question, ask about what's the new quantity demanded or the new quantity supplied. Simply either add or subtract the numbers in the column to determine that. You don't need to subtract from both columns. That is just one or the other. The question will state the quantity supplied changed or the quantity demanded changed. But getting on with the question then. If the quantity demanded of sandwiches decreases by 100 per hour at each price, the new equilibrium price of a sandwich is $3, and the new equilibrium quantity is 150. And I got that because when I subtracted the quantity demanded by 100, it then equaled the quantity supplied at 150, and the price would be $3. This consumer surplus equals the area of the triangle above the price and below the demand curve, and so it is equal to 1/2 times 150 sandwiches times $3 a sandwich, which is $225. The producer surplus equals the area of the triangle below the price and above the supply curve, and so is equal to 1/2 times 150 sandwiches times $3 a sandwich, which is $225. The total surplus equals the sum of the consumer surplus plus producer surplus. Before the change, the total surplus was $400 plus $400 equaling $800, and after the change, the total surplus is $225 plus $225, which would equal $450, or a change of negative $350. Question 6. If the quantity supplied decreases by 100 sandwiches an hour at each price, what is the equilibrium price and what is the change in total surplus? Well, same method as last time, except now you want to modify the quantity supplied amount. So here's the original table with these numbers. Now you go to the quantity supplied and simply subtract 100 from those numbers, and you'll get a new equilibrium price, and the equilibrium quantity supply of sandwiches decreases by 100 per hour. The new equilibrium price of a sandwich is $5, and the new equilibrium quantity is 150. And you see that there where the numbers line up. The quantity demanded matches the quantity supplied. This consumer surplus equals the area of the triangle above the price and below the demand curve, and so is equal to 1/2 times 150 sandwiches times $3 a sandwich, which is $225. The producer surplus equals the area of the triangle below the price and above the supply curve, and so is equal to 1/2 times 150 times $3 a sandwich, or $225. Before the change, the total surplus is 400 plus 400 equaling 800, and after the change, the total surplus is 225 plus 225 equaling 450, or a change, again, of negative $350. Question 7. If Sandwiches to Go Incorporated buys all the sandwich producers and cuts production to 100 sandwiches an hour, what is the deadweight loss that is created? If Sandwiches to Go rations sandwiches to 2 per person, by what view of fairness would the allocation be unfair? Well, if only 100 sandwiches are produced, the deadweight loss equals the area of the darkened triangle in figure 6.2, this area here. This area is 1/2 times the 100 sandwiches at $4 a sandwich, the price here, which is $200. Rationing sandwiches might be fair based on the fair results principle because everyone has an equal number of sandwiches. However, because Sandwiches to Go is restricting the number of sandwiches it produces, some customers might go without. If the fair results view incorporates these customers into the picture, then the rationing is unfair because not every consumer has a sandwich. The fair rules approach is likely to consider the rationing fair because all exchanges are voluntary. But it is worth noting that Sandwiches to Go Incorporated is restricting its production and so is creating a deadweight loss. For questions 8 and 9, use the following information. The table shows the supply and demand schedules for sandbags before and during a major flood. During the flood, suppose that the government gave all families an equal quantity of sandbags. Resale of sandbags is not permitted. The price, quantity demanded before the flood, quantity demanded during the flood, quantity supplied. Question 8. How would total surplus and the price of a sandbag change? The effect on the producer's surplus of the company selling sandbags depends on the price the government paid. That's the key point. If the government paid the higher post-flood price, the firm's producer surplus is unchanged. If the government required the companies to sell the sandbags to the government at the lower pre-flood price, the firm's producer surplus decreased. And if the government hands out the sandbags for free so that everyone gets an equal share, the effect on the consumer surplus is ambiguous. The consumer surplus increases because the bags are available at a price of $0. But there are two factors that offset the increase in the consumer surplus. First, if the government buys only 20,000 bags, the equilibrium quantity before the flood, the consumer surplus will be reduced because fewer sandbags will be distributed. Second, even if the government buys 35,000 bags, the equilibrium quantity during the flood, the consumer surplus will be reduced because the government will distribute some bags to people with low marginal benefit, like those who live on high ground, rather than concentrating on people with high marginal benefit, those who live on low ground. The effect on the price depends on whether the government pays the higher during flood price or the lower pre-flood price. Would the outcome be more efficient than if the government took no action? Explain. If the government took no action and the market was free to reach its equilibrium, then the outcome is efficient. If the government allows no resales, then the allocation is almost assuredly inefficient unless the government precisely duplicates the competitive market allocation. Question 10. The winner of the men's or women's tennis singles at the U.S. Open is paid twice as much as the runner-up, but it takes two to have a singles final. Is this compensation arrangement efficient? Is it fair? Explain why it might illustrate the big trade-off. Well, the compensation arrangement is efficient because all the participants play their hardest in the attempt to win the prize. As a result, the quality of play is extremely high and the amount of tennis produced is large. The fair results approach to fairness asserts that the compensation scheme is unfair because income is not equally distributed. The fair rules approach asserts that the scheme is fair because the players voluntarily enter the tournament and the symmetry principle is not violated. This arrangement might illustrate the big trade-off because if the winner was paid less and the loser was paid more, both the ultimate winner and the ultimate loser have an incentive to play less hard. That is, they may decrease the amount of tennis they produce. For problems 11 and 12, use the following information. There's the headline, eBay saves billions for bidders. Article reads, on eBay, the bidder who places the highest bid wins the auction and pays only what the second highest bidder offered. Researchers Wolfgang Jank and Galit Shumeli reported that purchasers on eBay in 2003 paid $7 billion less than their winning bids. Because each bid shows the buyer's willingness to pay, the winner receives an estimated consumer surplus of $4 or more. Question 11. What method is used to allocate goods on eBay? How does an eBay auction influence consumer surplus from the good? eBay is using market price to allocate the goods. The market price is the price established in the auction. If someone is willing and able to pay that price, the person will get the item. For the vast majority of auctions, the winning bidder will enjoy consumer surplus, so eBay increases the consumer surplus. For instance, if there are bidders on a unique item, the winning bidder, who sets the price for the good, will pay a price that is equal to the value of the item to the bidder with the second highest valuation plus the minimum bid increment. The winning bidder has some consumer surplus as long as his or her value of the good exceeds the price that must be paid, which will almost always be the case. Indeed, a person chooses to buy on eBay rather than elsewhere if the person believes that his or her consumer surplus is largest by purchasing on eBay. And question 12. Does the seller receive a producer surplus? Are auctions on eBay efficient? The vast majority of sellers receive a producer surplus. As long as the price of the good exceeds the marginal cost of producing the good, the seller receives a producer surplus. Auctions on eBay are efficient if the marginal cost of the goods being sold equals their marginal benefits. It seems likely that auctions on eBay are efficient because, with one potential exception, there are no obstacles to efficiency. In particular, eBay is not subject to price or quality regulations. There are no taxes nor subsidies on eBay, nor are there externalities. The goods sold on eBay are not public goods nor common resources, and the sellers on eBay are certainly not monopolies. The only potential obstacle to efficiency is the fees charged by eBay. If these fees are too high, then eBay will underproduce and the auctions on eBay will not be efficient. Hope that helps. Again, if there's any concerns there, any questions, please let me know. And I should probably change this word right here while I'm speaking to show that I can proofread as I'm speaking. So I appreciate your time. Again, please let me know if you have any questions.